Welcome to the February 21st, 2024 Parks Advisory Committee meeting. There's going to be a change to the agenda. We're just going to move public comment up where it is to number 4. So after communication staff will have public comment. Jonah, can you have a roll call?
Yes, Mr. Chairperson. Carol Allen is absent tonight. Brenda Austin.
Here.
Jeff Hutchinson.
Here.
Zach Andrews.
Here.
Shelley Reynolds.
Here.
Victoria Rizzo is absent, but she informed me she will be on her way shortly. Shirley Winters.
Here.
Robbie Cantrell.
Here.
Jim Hill is in California on vacation. And Michelle Craver.
Here.
And myself, Jonah Jacobson, is here representing City of Troutdale staff.
Okay, we're going to review and approve the December 2023 minutes.
Did you lose him?
That's all right.
This is Robbie. I have nothing to change.
This is Sherry, and I don't have anything.
Well, this is Jonah speaking, and I do have one thing I would like to not change, but clarify. In section 6, review of City Council's process with dogs and parks ordinance, about middle of page, on page 5, where I stated I believed College Park was leased from Mountain Community College. That is misinformation. I was wrong about that. To clarify, the City of Troutdale has an intergovernmental agreement leasing College Park from Metro.
This is Shelley on page 10 of 12, paragraph 3. Shelley was not maligning Sugar Pine, but maybe it was time for them to look for a building or bigger building. I don't think that was my comment.
Oh.
And then Shelley said that the white property was not available and he had it chained up. That also isn't my comment.
Oh.
I don't even know where the white property is, so.
I will, let's ask Carol if she said that. I have a vague recollection that perhaps that was Carol's comment.
Yeah, it seems like maybe.
Possibly.
This
No,
is-
it wasn't me.
This is Jeff, page 9, third paragraph from the bottom up. Zach stated the original thought was a decal to stick in the car that is authorized to park. If someone tried to peel it off, it would be destroyed. I'm pretty sure that's what I said.
Yeah, I think that's what I noted as well. That was the only change I had listed, other than highlighting some follow-up items from last time.
And this is Shelley, and this is where Shelley interjects. This is why it's really important for us to say our names before we make comments.
It makes it a lot easier for the transcriber, yes.
Do we have anything else, or is that pretty much one more time? I don't know, John, you want to make a note maybe on there about on number 9, page 11, hold or cancel next meeting, and it says the meeting will be held, and just make a notation like cancel due to winter storm.
Yes. All right.
Anybody have anything else, or you're still looking? No. Just want to make a motion to accept the minutes.
This is Shelley. I move that we accept the December minutes with corrections noted.
This is Robbie. I second.
Okay. All approve?
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, minutes are approved. Next is communication from staff.
All right, well, it's wonderful to see you all again. It feels like it's been ages. A lot has happened. And I feel like many of the agenda items on our agenda tonight are actually communications from staff. So I feel like, I will be kind of going back and forth to staff communications on various subjects throughout the evening's agenda. But in any case, I did want to give you you all a quick update on just some current happenings in the Parks Division of Public Works. I'm not sure if any of you have been down in Beaver Creek Canyon recently, but Trail Keepers of Oregon is hard at work removing and replacing the wooden stairway that goes down to the fallen bridge and the boardwalks. And so far, I'm quite impressed with their work for a small volunteer crew. They were also facing some unforeseen hurdles. There's quite a bit of asphalt in the ground where apparently there was an older staircase at some point that I wasn't aware of. A lot of buried steel cable. So they're, it's tough digging, but they're doing really good work. I anticipate that the stairway will be completed at some point by the end of April, beginning of May, is my estimate. Certainly before June. And it's very exciting. Also this week, Parks had our new tractor delivered. It's a new John Deere tractor with a front loader and a backhoe. It replaces a 30-year-old Kubota that has been here since the year that our most senior Parks employee started. And so that tractor's been here for his entire career, and we just got a new one, which is very exciting. So
The hat come with it?
yeah, they gave me a hat. Yeah, they gave me a hat. They gave me a hat. So
Is the old tractor still functional?
it is still functional. It'll be going to auction. It has relatively low hours. It's in good shape. I like it. It's a Kubota. It's like 430 horsepower. So anyway, it'll be going up for auction if anybody's interested. So so I did, I believe you were all aware, I did send out an email about the unfortunate cancellation of the Friends of Trees planting event on February 10th. And we are continuing to work with Friends of Trees and trying to plan future events and plantings with them. I believe that is a really excellent program through which that we will eventually, with the right amount of outreach, be able to replace some of our street tree inventory that is lost year after year. And so I think it was kind of a number of factors contributing to the registration for the event being low. Certainly one of those is probably the winter storm and people being nervous about planting trees at the moment. So yes.
This is Robbie. I tried to sign up for it, and my address was not able to be found in the database. So,
Interesting.
The next step was to send an email, which admittedly I never did, because I think I just scanned it while I was in the park, tried to put it in there and it didn't work. So my address wasn't in there. So that also could have been a contributing factor, but.
Interesting. I thank you
Where's
for
your
letting me
address
know.
at? Where's your address? Like what neighborhood? Sweetbriar?
It's like right near the post office.
Yeah, that should have been in there for everything. I mean, every address in Troutdale proper should have been admitted into their system. So yeah, thank you for letting me know. That's definitely something I will mention to them in my next meeting with them.
This is Sherry. I just have a question on how was it put out there for the public to know?
So as per the MOU that we signed with Friends of Trees, they were responsible for all of the outreach efforts. They sent out targeted mailers. They sent out targeted mailers to everybody on a list that I gave them that was generated from Community Development's permit database for where street trees had been removed in the last 5 years. And so so those mailers went out to those addresses. There were signs that were put out around town, that I think that little lawn signs. I believe that most of those got destroyed or lost in the storm. Those went out maybe 3 days before the storm happened, so.
And the wind took it.
Yeah, so yeah, certainly, and and another contributing factor was a staffing change at Friends of Trees that was about 3 weeks before our event was scheduled to take place. So I think some factors beyond anybody's control, but certainly thank you for that feedback, and as I continue to talk to them about future events, I will mention that and do my best to confirm that the addresses in the system are actually in the system. So that being said, I'm going to talk a little bit about future projects coming up. But one event that's coming up is the Earth Day event on April 20th, and so I am planning on having Friends of Trees have a table at the Earth Day event, because that seems like a good venue for that. So and more information on that to come. And other than that, as we come up for air after the storm and the cleanup efforts, which I'll go into in greater detail, we are seeing signs of spring and switching into planning for the changing of the seasons. Restarting our vegetation management programs. Ordering products and supplies, fertilizer, and everything for the season. So it's an exciting time. Looking forward to a different type of busy season for us coming soon.
Okay, Jonah, before you go to the review of the ice storm, let's jump in here and get any public comment. Anyone has any public comment that's not a non-agenda item? I'll start with you, sir. Do you have any public comment?
About this?
Or
About anything that's not on the agenda?
I just have some comments about the state park. So, whether that's appropriate.
Your time constraints not a factor?
Time constraints not a factor.
Okay, we'll get,
No, sir.
okay. Paul, anything?
Sandy.
Oh,
Where?
Thank you.
Paul, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Any comments?
Not sure you'll call for comments at the time, but I just wanted to briefly mention, I'm glad to see the agenda item that budget proposals are going to come before the committee. That's all I have on that one.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, review of the January ice storm.
all right. So Jeff, you mentioned that you had seen Public Works Director Travis Holton's presentation to the Troutdale City Council on January 23rd. He went pretty into depth about the Public Works response as a whole to the ice storm, and so certainly I can answer any questions that anybody might have. But I tonight was planning on speaking more about the ice storm from the parks side of things, and more about the aftermath of the storm and our cleanup efforts over the last 6 weeks. So as you all know, we experienced quite the winter weather event in January, beginning on the 12th, and lasting much longer than anybody anticipated through the following week. And from the park side of things, our primary assignment was to maintain this facility that we are in today, maintain Multnomah County Sheriff's Office's ability to operate out of this building. So we essentially worked almost round the clock shifts, plowing and de-icing the lot here, and the gates on the building, and the streets surrounding the police station here, so that the sheriff's deputies could continue to do their jobs. We applied close to 2 tons of de-icing salt over the course of the storm, just on this facility, essentially on this block right here. That does not, there's, and many more on, you know, tons of gravel on the city streets that, you know, that was applied by Public Works Streets workers. And so, you know, we made it through the storm without any injuries to any of our personnel. We made it through the storm without any considerable damage to any city property or vehicles. And so I'm extremely grateful for the hard work of my staff and for Public Works workers as a whole, as well as Incident Command through, you know, through that week. So, and then the, you know, the real hard work began as things began to thaw. We were dealing, you know, we dealt with a lot of fallen trees, as everybody knows, and saw around town and read in the paper, you know, and so part of the reason for that, you know, was because we had such a mild winter before this hard freeze event that happened, and many of the trees didn't really have time to acclimate to temperatures that cold and build up cold hardiness, and so there was, you know, sort of this tissue shock that happens to a lot of trees that caused, in addition to the wind and the weight of the ice, to cause a lot of trees to break in this storm. And so there was a lot of debris to clean up. There were you know, a few moments in the weeks following the storm when we considered, you know, reaching out for outside help through nonprofit organizations that deal with storm response and disaster relief. We certainly are, you know, in the process of applying for any state and federal grants to reimburse the city for costs. Despite all of this, there was not a huge amount of damage to Troutdale Park's infrastructure through the storm. We did receive, you know, our share of it, and probably the worst of it was up at the Columbia Dog Park, where about a 80-foot long section of fence and the gate was destroyed by multiple fallen fir trees, which some of you may have seen on social media. There was also quite a few fallen trees near Imagination Station, luckily none of them on it. And you may also have noticed that the Sunrise Park sign and barrier gate were smashed by a truck that couldn't stop making the curve on Hensley. And there was also a section of fence that was destroyed down near the Sugar Pine at Glen Auto Park. All told, though, we made it through without significant damage to any of our infrastructure or property. So that's extremely lucky. We are at this point now about, you know, 5 or 6 weeks out from the storm. We are getting to a point where our cleanup efforts have made a visible difference. There was a few weeks there where it was starting to feel a little Sisyphean, carrying this boulder on our backs up the endless hill, but things are looking better out there. There is some cleanup left to do, and that will remain. Things like the log rounds in Llewellyn Park, but all told, we are looking a lot better now than we were a couple of weeks ago. So again, I want to express my gratitude to the parks workers who have spent all of this time working on cleanup in and around Troutdale, not just in parks, but in our downtown area as well. And so that's my short review of the January ice storm. Does anybody have any questions for me?
This is Robbie. Is there any plans to replace the Sunrise Park sign?
We will replace the sign, yes. I'm looking for, that was a really nice sign. That was like a routed, carved, painted sign. And so I'd like to replace it with something as nice as that, not just with a prefabricated, sheet metal sign or something like that. So, but yes, we will replace the sign and the gate. The gate's a little easier. That we can do in-house.
This is Zach. I just wanted to follow up with a clarifying question on the de-icing. Were you mentioning that Parks specifically was utilizing resources to de-ice like the sheriffs, or was that Public Works in general you were talking about?
That was Parks specifically. I mean, Parks is, we are a division of Public Works, so we are Public Works workers, but
Sure.
because I'm the superintendent of Parks and Facilities, this was more on the facility side of things, and being that this is a city-owned facility that is in contract to Multnomah County Sheriffs, we as landlords have a duty, and also as citizens of the town have a vested interest in making sure our emergency responders are able to do their jobs. So yeah, those were Public Works resources, not Parks specifically. So
I was just curious, but yeah, I really appreciate all the work you guys did to around the clock to make sure that the city kept functioning properly and everyone stayed safe. So thank you guys for that.
Absolutely, our pleasure.
I did want to circle back just to communication from staff in general, since we didn't really touch base on that. Just going back to last time, follow-up questions from staff that were requested. I just wanted to touch base real quick. You had mentioned that you were going to be meeting with, we were talking about parking, we talked about summer park ranger being feasible. You mentioned that there was a meeting scheduled with them January 8th.
Yes.
And they were going to draft an estimate. I'm just wondering what the follow-up was on that.
Yes, so I did meet with them, and they had some interesting things to say. It was not, that meeting was not conclusive. I feel that, following that meeting, I felt it was important to speak with Multnomah County Sheriffs and make sure that, that if we were to hire private security, that wouldn't be, stepping on any toes or infringing upon any union agreements with them. So they didn't seem terribly interested in us contracting private park security. It's something that I can revisit, in the future, but yeah, it seemed that the interest in making that happen following that meeting was not strong. And so,
So not a viable option at this time.
at the moment, I would say it's not something we're proceeding with at the moment.
Okay.
And it is not something that I added a budget allocation into next year's budget.
Sure. Okay. And then I wanted to follow up as well on Scott mentioning that he would be passing documents through you regarding the further breakdown and pricing layouts that he had on the bridge and the related project. I know we've kind of discussed that, but we were hoping for like kind of a rundown. Maybe you sent that out. I didn't catch it. Oh
yeah, I did send an email out with a packet of schematics that Scott sent over to me. Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't put that on the agenda for tonight. If we'd like to do an update on that project in the near future, I'd be happy to invite Scott back, and we could go over some of that stuff that was missing from the December meeting.
I know it was kind of a long shot. I just mostly wanted to get eyes on some of the specifics to it. But,
right.
If you
I can find that stuff and resend it if it's gotten buried in all of your inboxes at this point. Yeah, no problem.
That's all good.
Yeah,
that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you.
Want to move on to the update on basketball courts?
Yes, yeah, so this will be a quick one. And so some of these were kind of subheaders in my communication from staff that made them in their way into the agenda. But we following the ice storm, we have gone out and replaced some of the nets. You should be seeing. What park do you live next to, Robbie, by the way? I'm sure you've told me before, but.
I live right here, so I'm on 1260 Lower Court, so I live near Sunrise, but I literally am in the center, so I walk 360 degrees.
Okay. So the kids that you see that were playing on the netless hoops, is that at Helen Altus?
Yeah, the Helen Altus, and then there were a couple that were missing down. I can't remember the name of it. The one that's overlooking Beaver Creek Canyon. That has like the forested part.
Kiku.
Kiku.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the two. It's like the mini basketball nets there.
Right.
Some of them are broken down, and some of them I think are gone.
Okay.
So.
Yeah.
As far as I remember, I haven't been down there in years.
Okay. Yeah. So you're all over town then. It's not the park by your house. It's just wherever you've seen it.
No,
Okay.
I walk around all the time, and I have a bike too, so I'm always riding around.
Great.
I see kids.
Well, It's not the nets, but I will tell you that I did have some repairs made to the fence that was around the courts at Kiku. We had some repeated vandalism incidents with the door of the fence that goes around the basketball courts there, being ripped off the hinges and thrown on the court. That happened 3 times. So I did have the hinges welded, spot welded, so that they can't do that anymore. And we did, we did a few other repairs to the fence out there. You should be seeing nets reinstalled on the hoops this week. I can't say for certain if they have gotten to every park at this point, but my crew has been working on that this week. Now, as we've been doing that, we have discovered a few places where the hoops themselves have rusted out and the loops where the nets connect are gone, have ripped off. Good news, we will be replacing the basketball hoops themselves in the coming year, and making sure that and all the backboards, or not all of them, but wherever they need to be replaced. So we'll be doing some updates to both the basketball courts and the tennis courts this year. And and thank you for instigating that.
I used to live in, this is Robbie, I used to live in Fairview where it was like, there was only like 2 basketball courts in the whole city. So coming here and seeing all the parks with the basketball courts, but just not up to like, the standards that they should be is, it hurts my heart.
Yeah, right, yeah.
But I can't play basketball anymore because I get killer shin splints. So I just see the kids out there and I know what they're going through. So.
Yeah, well, thanks for looking out for them and making their experience in Troutdale parks better. So yeah, we will we'll definitely be making some updates to that this year. So, and that's all I got for the basketball courts at the moment.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on to the opening of the 40 Mile Loop Trail.
Yes, yeah. So there has been some chatter back and forth between the folks over at the Port of Portland and Metro about the tentative opening date for the section of the 40 Mile Loop Trail that you were all involved in naming earlier this year or last year, I guess. So the Chalk Trail there will be tentatively opening June 17th. And the port is in the just the baby stages of planning a grand opening event that they have specifically asked for Troutdale's input on. And so that is something that certainly I'd like to discuss with all of you as we get closer to the date. I believe it's something that may have the port may have a table announcing it at First Friday coming up at the beginning of the summer. So yeah, that's the news on the 40 Mile Loop Trail.
You want to have any comments on that?
Or questions?
Nope. Okay, we're going to move on to number 7, upcoming projects and seasonal work.
Right. So yeah. So I mentioned the Earth Day event that we have coming up. That's planned on April 20th. It's a Saturday, and as part of that event is going to be held at Columbia Park this year. So that event kind of moves around from different parks every year. And last year I believe it was at Kiku. I wasn't here, but so this year it'll be at Columbia Park, and I'm planning on putting together a nursery order for a bunch of native plants. I'd like to kind of improve some of the trails and even like kind of the edges of the inside of the dog park and in the back corner with a bunch of native plants, and essentially make the Columbia Woods look a little bit more like you would see in the foothills of Mount Hood or up the Sandy River. So and yeah, that'll be a community planting event where people are out joining their friends and neighbors for a fun day of improving the parks, and I believe there will be food and music. So more to come on that, certainly. I will let you know as the plans develop for that, but it will be at Columbia Park on April 20th.
Any questions or comments?
Sherry, I'm a little curious on what are some of the native plants you're talking about?
Right, yeah, so certainly, I mean, everybody, has seen like the more prolific rhododendrons that you see in the forest. Vine maple, I would also be interested in planting some madrone, things like ground cover like salal, huckleberry, those kinds of, easily recognizable native plants, Oregon grape, things that you see in the Western Cascades.
This is Robbie. In my conversation and consultation with the Backyard Habitat Group, they actually were familiar with it's like the list, the Portland, City of Portland's authorized list of Columbia Basin native species. And it has like categories that go all the way up into the Columbia Gorge. So if I type that and I put a Google search, and that has probably thousands of plants in there that typically in the back of that list, they have all the Portland nurseries that provide specific. So
awesome.
Yeah, I don't want to learn more about that. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I'll definitely check that out. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I'm always interested to know about other nurseries, especially for things like native. There's a local native plant nursery called Troutdale that we've bought from in the past. I suppose I haven't put an order in with them yet, but yeah, thank you for that, Robbie. I'll definitely check that resource out.
And this is Shelley, just stating the obvious, we're making sure all those plants are safe for dogs.
Oh yes, absolutely. Yep. Yeah, I will cross-check that, and yeah, anything, especially that's going, on the trails around the dog park or in the dog park. Yeah, we're not going to put anything toxic out there for the doggos. So yeah, but good question. Yeah.
And this is Jeff, and I recommend lots of huckleberry.
Okay.
Yeah, this is Robbie. I second just as many berries as we can.
All right. Yeah, and so let's see, other projects that we got going on. We will be, coming up this spring, we'll be installing a bunch of drip irrigation line at the butterfly gardens up at Sunrise Park. We have, in the past, we've been using our watering truck to water the gardens up there. We did plumb in a irrigation line or a faucet to serve irrigation lines there last year. So we'll be going out and burying all of the drip hose ahead of the irrigation season here pretty soon.
This is Jeff. Did that irrigation line survive the freeze?
I believe so. I haven't seen it shooting water.
It's only like a foot below the ground.
Yeah.
It's PVC pipe.
It should have gotten drained down. It should have a drain valve.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we winterize all of our irrigation, before Christmas every year.
When I was going to the park there, I'm like, I don't think that pipe survived.
Yeah.
You guys figured it out. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I sure hope it got shut off and drained down. I'm gonna go check that tomorrow morning now, Jeff. I think we would have discovered it if it had. Yeah. So, and so that's kind of the upcoming projects that we have, or events that we have coming up in the next month or so. So.
Okay, let's just move on to the update on the skate spot. I don't know if I heard it mentioned that way. Skate park project at Columbia Park.
Yes, yeah. So this was something that I believe somebody asked me about. I don't know if it was November, and I remember saying I have heard nothing about the skate park, but the skate park is moving forward at the moment, just with preliminary contract negotiations with a company called Spone Ranch. They've built skate parks in Bend, I believe, Tillamook, Umatilla. So they've done some business in Oregon, and they are a reputable company. I believe they're based in California. They were out doing some utility locates yesterday. I did see some utility workers out there and doing some. They were doing some measurements so that they can provide a mock-up and some some basic preliminary designs of it. As of now, I don't have any mock-ups or graphics to share with you on it. But forgive me one second, I'm just pulling this up. Okay, so they were contacted, this company was contacted through the Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing Program, which is like a collective purchasing program for government agencies that we're a member of. And and as we're speaking of the budget, the total budget amount is likely to be around 440,000, I believe, but that isn't entirely coming out of the parks budget. There are other budgetary sources for that. So the contract is, they're in the process of finalizing the contracts with them at this point, and Public Works Engineering hopes to have a final signed document by the end of this week. So in our next meeting, I will likely have more to report on the skate spot project. But as of right now, we're, it's just sort of in the beginning phases of getting a contract negotiation, and so yeah, and that's the update I have on the skate park.
Any questions or comments?
This is Sherry. Can I know kind of exactly where you're talking in Columbia Park?
Yeah, I believe the plan is to have it sort of at the entrance on Imagination Way, sort of kind of near where the Columbia Park sign is. So it's kind of, I believe that's the northeast corner of the soccer field.
This is Robbie. It's got the fences, and there's some. It looks like it's a baseball court or a baseball field or something over there.
It's inside of it's inside of the soccer field. It's the soccer field that's immediately to the west of Reynolds High.
Okay, yeah.
From their theater building?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so directly across the street from that parking
Yes,
area and closer to Cherry Park or whatever it is there.
Yeah, right.
I think the idea was, this is Shelley, I think the idea was to place it someplace very visible.
Yeah.
Yes, and where there's already parking available right there. There's the the road parking right there, so as soon as we have some actual plans and mock-ups, then I'd be happy to share those with you, and we'll see exactly where they're planning on putting it. So, but this is not a project that I've been directly involved in very much, so forgive me. If I don't know exactly the area that we're talking about, but from what I've gathered in the conversations I've been a part of, that's the area we're talking about. It's the directly across from the theater building at Reynolds.
Okay, all done on that topic for now? Let's move on to public to be heard. You want to go ahead and make a comment? If you can come up to the table here.
Yeah.
Just state your name.
My name is Dave Tibbles, and I'm a little nervous, so sorry. Didn't plan on being here tonight. My name is Dave Tibbles, and it's spelled Tibbles, and I have the great pleasure of being a Troutdale resident for 29 years this month. So my wife, Susie, and I, we live in Lot 23 in Cherry Ridge. Lot 23 is adjacent to Cherry Park Road, and it's also right next to the soccer field. We've raised 2 children across those 29 years. They've had the opportunity to play in that field. They've actually played in youth soccer in that field. And I will tell you the one thing that has always impressed me about governance in this particular town that we've lived in for actually beyond 29 years is the ability for those that govern, the ability to communicate. It's been stellar. I will tell you, we knew when, for example, when we first were the original owners of that home in Lot 23, we knew when a second baseball field was being built. We knew, most lately, we knew when they were redoing the sidewalks on Columbia Park, right? We did the sidewalks. We had notifications, those kinds of things. We knew about the dog park. We had opportunity to provide input. We were sought out. So imagine this Tuesday morning, I'm in lot 23, enjoying my cup of coffee and starting my first Zoom call of several that day. And my 2 golden retrievers go and start barking their heads off at 7:30 in the morning. Because a locator service guy is now in our front yard, you know, marking up the utility lines. And he's going on the side of our house, which is fine. I'm not too bent about that at all. As a matter of fact, I went out and talked to him, and I found out that there's a skate park being built next to our house. So I just ask you guys, right, put yourself in my shoes that didn't really know what's going on. Maybe there was some big announcement. Maybe somebody came to our door and knocked on the door and said, hey, we want to talk to you about it, get your input. Maybe I missed it. I don't think I did.
There were several open houses over at Columbia Park that were several members of the Parks Advisory Committee, Mayor Lauer, the couple of companies interested in putting in a skate park. Those all happened there at Columbia Park several weekends. Gosh, has it been 2 years now?
Yeah, I'd say about
It's been
2 years.
2 years. They've been talking about it for at least that long.
Yeah.
They talked about it way longer than that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's been quite a while they've talked about it. And then we had all these open houses about 2 years ago.
Unfortunately, I wasn't on the mail list for that. I would have enjoyed maybe somebody knocking on my door and say, hey, we'd like your feedback. We've picked a location and we just want to talk to you about how it's going to work. Here's going to be the hours of operation. Here's how we're going to deal with sound pollution. Here's how we're going to deal with lighting pollution. Here's our particular street is Stella Way. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but it butts up at the end of the park. If you go over the barrier, it's kind of like one of the longest cul-de-sacs in the world. It's 10 or 12 houses long, right? But at the end is the soccer field. And we have a lot of, large families towards the end of that block, and there's a lot of cars already. So, and oftentimes what happens in the summertime, those beautiful days, that's the greatest part. People will come and play soccer out there, kind of in informal ways, and they'll park at the end of our street, and we'll get to, parking pollution, so to speak. So it would be great if somebody could come and meet with, some of the folks in our little immediate area there and just get some feedback. For example, is there going to be signage, right, that says, hey, don't park here, park over there, something to that effect? Is there hours of operations going to be, is it going to shut down at 10 at night? How is it going to shut down? Who's going to police it? And I'm not suggesting the police it either, but is there a policy that's going to help police it? Those types of things. That's just, again, I just feel like my wife and I are just very disappointed, and I'm hoping that there's a few of you that could turn us back into raving fans of Troutdale. So that's my spiel. Appreciate yielding the time.
Would you mind giving your address? You don't
Yeah.
have to if you don't.
I'd
I'd
be-
like to look it up,
Yeah.
just to see.
Yeah.
There's the sign-in sheet over there.
Oh,
That's
I-
like the official.
I could sign in if that's okay.
yeah, if you put your
Get it
address
off
on
of that.
there, I want to look up and see where it is.
Okay.
Perfect.
I don't think you're gonna have a problem with the parking because they'll just drive it safer. It's probably gonna be just this area mainly. Like Gresham is usually the Gresham kids, the one on Powell is usually the Powell area kids. I don't see lots of people coming in from other areas to do it. It's probably gonna be mainly Troutdale kids. The basketball courts are another thing, because I live near T2, and kids from, I have no idea where they're from, come to that one. In the summer, it's packed.
Interesting, I wouldn't have wouldn't have guessed that.
No, they're not from our neighborhood.
Yeah. The great thing about, and I'll finish with this, one of the great things about the spot we're in is it faces Mount Hood. And we've had the great pleasure of being able to see those sunrises for this whole time, almost 3 decades. So my hope is that we're not also gonna put a bunch of things in place where view is disruptive and things like that. But, so anyways, I appreciate your guys' time, appreciate everything you do.
Thanks for coming.
And I hope you take that to heart and
Yep.
we can communicate.
This is Sherry, not to be a Debbie Downer, but I might tend to disagree slightly with you, Victoria, on that. Imagination Station draws people from lots of different places to that park, so I imagine one more thing might be a greater amount of people coming there because there's that and there's that, you know, there's just, and that one more thing in that area.
Yeah, it's a different
So,
age group too.
Yeah, so it could just potentially bring even more people from other areas, so.
Yeah, the park is there, gets a lot of traffic. The high school is there, it gets a lot of traffic. We call it the little city. It ebbs in and ebbs and flows out during the day. The Imagination Station itself is hugely popular. The baseball fields during certain times of year, very populated with tournaments and things like that. And it's all things we've become accustomed to, right? And it's part of the spirit of Troutdale. But at the same time, I'm hopeful that this doesn't become a big thorn for us as, as neighbors. So, all right.
Well, I just want to thank you, Dave, for coming in and voicing your concerns on this. I can assure you that none of this happens in a vacuum and none of it happens, overnight. And I would like to give you my card. Feel free to reach out to my number, and I will be sure to include you and your wife in any information or outreach efforts that are involved in the process as Public Works is entering negotiations with this company. So, I want to apologize on behalf of the city that you feel that you weren't communicated, to on the front end of this plan.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
absolutely.
I'll sign it.
Hey, and Sherry and Dave, feel free to join us anytime for any of our meetings to give your input.
Yeah, I'd be
We
happy to.
appreciate it,
You can do it
yeah.
on Zoom too.
You
want
can
to
do it
stay
on
on.
Zoom.
Yeah,
too, so.
I felt this was worth face to face.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and like I said, you guys do a terrific job. That dog park is something else. I think something that the community has needed, and I'm just, like I said, I hoping we can turn this thing.
And once they get the mock-ups and everything, they'll probably show us to look at, so
Right.
we'll invite you.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks for coming in. Paul, do you have any comments?
No, I don't, except the last speaker, I question what the utility locators were doing that far west. My understanding is the skate park is in the far northeast corner, right by Imagination Way or whatever you call it. So there should be an intervening soccer field between Stella Way and skate park.
Oh, this is Jeff. Hey, Jonah, I thought the skate park is gonna be right there in the corner there next to the roadway.
That's what I thought too.
Which roadway, not next to the
Cherry Park.
cul-de-sac that he was.
Cherry Park,
Cherry
where
Park.
Cherry Park and Imagination Station.
Right, and so that is I think we're talking about the same thing. That is the northeast corner that Paul just mentioned, yeah.
That'd be northeast.
So it makes it highly visible to the road.
Right, and so that's the confusion, and so I saw these same utility locate workers right next to Mr. Tibble's house that same morning. And wondered to myself, I wonder what they're doing over on this side. Now, it could be that they're marking out underground lines that, run towards the area where they're planning the construction. I couldn't answer that question today,
But it's actually the opposite corner that
right,
it's being looked at.
right, and to the best of my knowledge, the skate park is not going in at the cul-de-sac at Stella Way.
Take care.
Thank you.
Brenda, I don't want to leave you out. We haven't heard from you. You have any comments about anything?
Nope, I'm good, thank you.
Okay. All right, discussion of current status of dogs in parks ordinance being reviewed by city council in April.
Yeah, so I believe that you are all aware that your recommendations for permitting on-leash dog access in neighborhood parks went before the Troutdale City Council on January 23rd. And in that meeting, there was a bit of a sea change among some members of the council and the way that they're viewing permitting dogs into parks. Not everyone, had this change of heart, but in any case, that there was more support than there had been in the fall for permitting dogs into the list of neighborhood parks that you all had recommended. There was some concern around Sweetbriar Park, just given that the school is adjacent to it. And also it was presented to the city council, your recommendation that Glen Auto Park be dog exclusionary going forward. So in the January 23rd city council meeting, there was no vote taken on this matter. This was just a discussion of the recommendations to sort of take the temperature of this idea. So there will actually be a vote taken on it in the city council meetings in April, I believe, on either April 9th or April 23rd. It hasn't been added to the agenda yet, but it will be going back before council on either the 9th or the 23rd of April, I believe. So that is the current status of your recommendations for dogs in parks, and I would encourage all of you to attend those city council meetings if you would like to.
This is Jeff. Can we clarify the Sugar Pine? When we discussed, we don't want dogs in Glen Auto Park, but customers are going to bring their dogs.
Right.
Is there some way we can have an area around Sugar Pine where dogs are allowed, possibly just a little bit into Glen Auto, and then have signage or a gate that says no dogs beyond this point? Because we were concerned about people in the summertime saying, hey, you can't have dogs here. I leave my dog in the car or the truck, and maybe even if the windows are down a little bit, it's too hot.
Right. Yep, and in my mind, kind of a perfect area for a small and semi-enclosed like dog relief area is kind of next to the lifeguard statue, between the lifeguard statue and the trailhead and the Sugar Pines shed with the mural on it right there. There's kind of an isolated little patch right there. So certainly we can discuss that, needing to suss out the details of how that looks.
Right.
We can, let me see here. I'm looking at the calendar to just see if we will, I don't think that we will be meeting before the council talks about it in April. Perhaps that is something that we should, be discussing in those city council meetings.
Okay, Jonah, this is Michelle. There is a sign already as you enter Glen Auto Park that says no dogs allowed, because we take our dog down to Sugar Pine, and we were actually gonna go in the park, and it's like, oh, we can't bring less in the park, so.
Right.
Whether people pay attention to it or not, but it's right as you enter the park.
Right, yeah, and yeah, this kind of harkens back to the mixed messaging confusion around the current status of the dogs ordinance and you know, needing to clarify that in order to change signage, you know, in the city parks. So.
This is Sherry, and I'd say it goes back also to that bathroom issue. That Sugar Pine doesn't provide a bathroom. If somebody's there and they have a dog and they can't leave their dog unattended, or they end up in the park with their dog.
Mhm.
So it seems like there's, you know, all the signage in the world might not help it. We don't have
Yeah, the
some,
bathroom's definitely
some
issue,
bathroom
yeah.
relief area as well for the human,
Right.
not just the dog.
Yeah, this is Jeff, maybe Sugar Pine would need to provide portable toilets.
Yep, that.
Because there were restaurants
That's
that
a
are
good
really
suggestion.
required to have a restroom facility. So,
Especially as it's expanded as much as it has.
yeah.
But yes, thank you for bringing that up, and certainly that, you know, that is an important detail. You know, if we were to change the dogs policy for Glen Auto Park, or begin to enforce the current policy that we have on the books for all parks at Glen Auto.
Any further questions or comments? Okay. Next up, we have the 2024-25 Parks and Facilities Budget Discussion, list of planned projects, new and continued, with opportunity for feedback and suggestions from committee members.
Yes, so I would like to share with you sort of a, you know, a curated list of some ongoing projects that will be hopefully continued in the next fiscal year, as well as a few others. And again, you know, I want to say that all of this still needs to go to the budget committee for approval. None of this is approved. None of this is set in stone. These, you know, this is just what myself and the Public Works Director have put together for our recommendations for the 24-25 fiscal year. And
Do you have this in print for us?
I don't at this point, because as I said, this is not, you know, none of this has been you know, finally approved. You will certainly see all of this in print when, you know, once it's going to the budget committee and council through the, you know, the budget approval process. At this moment, this is you know, this is just an internal worksheet document that I'm discussing, but I'm happy to share. I'm happy to share with you anything on it. Some of these you're familiar with. I suppose we can start with some that I've already mentioned: the Trail Keepers of Oregon and Beaver Creek Canyon repairs that are taking place on the trail system between Kiku and Whedon Park. I would like to continue that work. There's certainly more trail improvements to be done. So I've put last year there was $40,000 for Beaver Creek Canyon repairs in our parks budget. I have put $40,000 in it again for the following fiscal year. And everybody's favorite thing, the Beaver Creek North Bridge Replacement Project will have continued funding in our budget. Whether or not we end up using that, you know, remains to be seen. I will continue to work towards a solution on that with all of you. There will be, we've recommended a $250,000 budget allocation for the Beaver Creek Canyon Bridge.
This is Sherry.
Mhm.
I believe it was asked before on the previous year when there was something allocated, did it carry over? And the same is true if something happens. I mean, is that going to carry over what was put in the budget that should kind of still be in the coffers or not?
If the project is scheduled to continue, you know, say we just didn't have, you know, we didn't have the capacity to complete that project in the fiscal year, you know, then those funds aren't automatically carried over. They, you know, they still have to go through the approval process. However, generally speaking, if there's a project that we still plan to do that we weren't able to do in 1 year, we will carry those funds over and attempt to do it in the following fiscal year.
Okay, so what you're saying is, if we had allotted $40,000 to a certain project, that might take more, and we allotted 40,000 in 2023, and then we don't get it done, and in 2024, we would like that 40,000 to carry over from what was the other budget, so it's sort of like it's in the bank waiting for us? That's not the case.
Not necessarily, and
Okay.
it can't be flexed between different allocations, so you can't say we didn't use this $40,000 for, this project, so we have it for this other thing. That's yeah, we can't do that. We'd say we use it for the thing it was allocated for, or we don't use it. And the money stays in the
I
general
was
fund.
thinking more of like, it's carrying over, sort of like in the
Oh, right.
bank,
Mhm.
and then we're allotting this year's 40,000 to the project, so now we
Right.
have 80,000 to work on that project. It's not working that way.
Most of the time, I don't believe it works that way. There are some circumstances, like, there are some funds, that are not like general fund, say like the bike and the bike and trail improvement fund, where, that money that is in that fund stays static or even grows because it's funded by things like the gas tax. But generally speaking, no, I don't, no, it's not like that money just stays there indefinitely with that tag on it. We review every year whether or not those projects are going to happen or if we're abandoning them. So,
Victoria?
Have they applied for a grant?
for the bridge, at this moment, no. Those would be better questions for the Public Works Engineering team who are managing that project. So, at the moment, we have not secured grant funding.
But have they applied? I mean, there's lots of.
I don't know, Victoria, I'm sorry, I don't want to say,
Because a lot
I
of
don't want to give you
time
wrong
In
information.
the budget,
Mhm,
when you're doing the budget, if
right.
you're gonna have this big grant, you might be more likely to get funds approved. So,
Absolutely, and on that Beaver Creek Bridge North replacement project, there is a note that says if grant funded. So essentially that means that $250,000 that is in there, I think everybody knows is not going to be sufficient to cover the entire project cost. And so I think, what that's saying is if we get grant funding to pay for the rest of it, we have this much ready to go in the fiscal year.
This is Zach. Just to clarify then, is the $250,000 amount coming from the place of that being the cost generally estimated for the draft and scope of work for the initial permitting?
Can you say that again?
Yeah, so
I wanna make sure I understand your question.
based on our last conversation with Scott, who's basically saying the scope of work and the draft cost estimate for that work was about $250,000. Permits and drawing and applications would cost $250,000. So I guess my question is that the amount of money being allocated because that is what it's going to be going towards?
That would make sense to me. That seems, that would make sense to me. I can't say for certain that is true. Sure, I'm sorry, but.
This is Jeff. So if we were to spend the $250,000 for all these permits, all the paperwork and thing, before you even break ground, is there a time frame on that? In other words, if it's 3 years down the road after we spent that $250,000, and then we have the money, they go back and say, wait a second, that was 3 years ago. It's only, we have to update that, and now it's not going to be another $100,000 or $250,000.
Right, I would imagine, yes. I mean, almost any estimate that you get from like any contractor says.
Well,
this
I mean,
estimate is good for
to
90
do
days.
that process over again.
Oh,
Yeah,
right.
this
right.
is Robbie, I can't remember his name, but he was doing the presentation about the bridge. That was a topic of conversation where he said they have like an expiration date.
Okay.
Because that's what he was saying. He goes, we can do this right now, But by the time we figure out how to do it, like that stuff is gonna be gone, and
So
we're gonna have to reapply.
We don't want to spend any of that money until we have the money to build the bridge.
Theoretically,
Right,
that's
'cause-
what, this is Robbie, that's what, $1.5 million, yeah, so even if, Sherry's carryover concept were to work for, that would take like 8 years to get to the actual budget, and by then it'll probably have quadrupled.
This is
So-
Jeff. I was gonna
Better
save this
check
for
it
the committee concerns and comments, but since we're on the topic, it seems to me, what I like to see is, and I'm not trying to bypass the city engineer or anything, but get trail keepers involved in this, and let's figure out a way to build this bridge to specification using aluminum and fiberglass with materials that can be brought in by volunteers on foot, and eliminate that crazy cost because they have to use helicopters and all this. Trail keepers, I think, they do this.
They've done it before.
And they told a story about, I forget what park it was.
Silver Falls.
Silver Falls, I think it was a 12 or 13 mile hike, and they were bringing stuff in on their shoulders, and stockpiling it. I know there'd be some concerns with materials being left there, with vandalism or theft or whatever, but I know that actually right next door to Brenda's home is an empty lot that has access to a trail that goes right down to where the bridge is. There could be a container with all the materials set on that property, and you could have volunteers, trail keepers, and volunteers from the city. Once everything's planned and ready to construct, whatever company, just get the materials down to the work site and we'll fabricate it. That would save so much money.
Yeah, no, I mean, in theory, it absolutely does. I don't disagree with you, Jeff. I just, I also, I can't say that we can just bypass the information that Scott provided on the permit process and the hoops we are legally obligated to jump.
Well, I understand we still do that,
Right.
but there's talk of a wood bridge and talk of the weathered steel bridge. Weathered steel bridge is gonna be over $1 million.
Yeah.
That's never gonna happen. I don't think it's gonna ever, that's too much money. And the wood bridge at 600,000 to 700,000, that's, crazy. But what would aluminum and fiberglass, which they use at the Silver Falls Park, that type of material that could be brought in with volunteers, that's something I think we need to look at. I'm not trying to bypass that $250,000, I mean, that's kind of gonna be there, but let's try to lower the cost of the bridge, right? Because there's been no mention of aluminum fiberglass, and that's an option.
I'm certainly willing to go back and talk to Public Works about the possibility of involving trail keepers or other volunteer crews in the construction portion of it. And any way that we can not use a helicopter.
Sure. Just to kind of recap our previous discussion on that, a lot of the costs and everything involved is coming from it being also in a residential zone, having to meet FEMA requirements, the materials that they did the study on were specifically geared as the options that were viable to meet all those requirements and everything. So I know we already had this discussion multiple times, and I'm sure we will continue, from a standpoint of trying to cut costs where we can, for sure. Personally, I am thinking at this point, based on the unlikely nature of being able to progress as is at the moment, some of the funds would be at this point better allocated, spent on several other big projects that we could accomplish for the city that still fit in with our master plan priorities based on the citizens' feedback. Because yes, that's a big thing on our mind. That's kind of like the white whale, if you will, of the parks committee and the department as a whole. But it's, as of right now, personally, I feel like it's something that we would maybe be able to kind of put our heads together on and spend our time more wisely this year, maybe tackling some other things if that's the case. First.
This is Robbie. I totally agree. 250,000 is a lot of money considering the current budget allocations. When you look into, I remember you referencing the fact of how much needed additional park staff members are. one of those costs $40,000 to $50,000. We're talking right there about 5 additional staff members on hand, but that's not the only thing that we can do. And so I'm wondering if, just to go along with Zach, is there anything that, I mean, I know that we can do the permitting, but then we have to like justify that the cost is going to go on with the, keeping in mind that those permits have an expiration date. Like you said, is this even worth our pursuit? Is there anything like tying that? Do we have anything that's like, we have to commit this $250,000 or else we'll lose X, Y, and Z? Like, we're not in a hole that we need to continue digging, are we? Is that making sense?
No, I did, from my understanding, no. And I don't believe that I ever said that I didn't think that this was a worthy pursuit or questioning whether it was a worthy pursuit. I do agree that, it's important to temper expectations for this being completed in the coming fiscal year. But that being said, we are still talking about it. Everybody is still talking about it. It's not, it hasn't died on the vine. And we will continue to talk about it, but I just, I do agree that it will come, it will come when it comes. We certainly don't need to spend our entire year talking about it. But it will come up again, certainly.
Well, this is Robbie. I understand that. I guess what I'm saying is like, going off of Sherry's point, given the fact that the $250,000 was not just set aside, waiting to be used specifically for the bridge reconstruction, it's just kind of floating around in space until it's used for that. Given that that's not the case, if we don't have to do the permitting this year and we can redirect that $250,000 this year, but then are we able to like come back to that next year or the year after when maybe that is a little bit more feasible for us to actually accomplish it within, each given year? I'm just saying like, it's a lot to put aside $250,000 with like the imaginary use that under these specific circumstances, we will be able to proceed with that budget. But until then, it's just a line item that essentially, if we don't complete it, that's going to waste when we could do
I mean,
uses
I don't
in
think
2024.
I don't think you should think about it in terms of that money being locked up and not being used for other things. Keep in mind that this is all general fund. This is all like the city's money as a whole.
Right.
And we are not going to, there's not like robbing Peter to pay Paul happening with that money. If it is not used in the current year, it's not going to stop us from using the general fund the way that it is intended to be used.
No, this is Robbie. I understand that. I guess I'm saying like even in the realm of, I mean, $250,000 is a lot, and if we're talking about all of that being dedicated specifically towards the permitting process, like, isn't there a scenario where we could even shrink that $250,000? Because even if you redirect $100,000 of that, that's a huge amount of money to be able to accomplish any number of things that we talk about on this committee, and accomplish those things quickly and efficiently within the fiscal year, instead of chasing after a scenario of a bridge being built for $1.5 million in maybe 5 years or so.
That's an excellent question. I feel like not being intimately familiar with the details of these permits myself, because I'm not an engineer. I feel like I would have to, defer to the engineering team on questions like that.
This is Sherry. This might be me speaking a little out of turn, and possibly those that live in the neighborhoods that immediately go into Beaver Creek might speak differently. I do feel like in my times of going into Beaver Creek, there's people I've come across that want there to be a bridge there. Now, I'm not seeing 300 or 400 people by any means, but there are some. So I think if it totally goes away as a line item, that would upset people. That might be my perspective. Maybe you that live in the neighborhoods around there might have something different to say. Do you want to see a bridge down in Beaver Creek?
I think this is Shelley, I think historically it's been pretty agreed upon that a bridge is needed down there and wanted down there by
Needs to
anybody
continue
who's
to be
asked.
Part of the project.
Yeah, it's been actively sought after for as long as I've been on this committee.
Yeah, but to Jeff's points, I mean, materials, there's so many other options.
This is Jeff speaking. I thought that part of the plan for Troutdale was to have the Beaver Creek Trail be completed as part of a tourist destination for the city. You know, people coming to explore the gorge, they may stay at McMenamins, they may come in the town, to Main Street, and if they have maybe half a day left or something, instead of going into the gorge, they go into Beaver Creek and they do a hike. So to me, it's kind of like having that bridge completed and the trails restored like we're doing now is a benefit to the city as a destination, a place for people to come and actually hike. And I think we need to keep seeing what grants are available, for sure. There might be grants that match dollar to dollar, and kind of get out there that we're trying to complete this bridge. You never know, you might have somebody that contributes a bunch of money to help us out. But yeah, I mean, the way I looked at it in December, that's why I want to bring up this meeting, because in December, I'm like 600 to over $1 million. This is not going to happen. Then I started really thinking about how can we make it happen? I think the big thing is that $250,000 permitting and fee is like, it's outrageous.
Yeah.
That's the killer, because if it was only, say it was $600,000 to build a wood bridge, say it was $450,000, $500,000 to do aluminum fiberglass, and then you have that $250,000 that the city's allocated, and you get a matching grant, that's $500,000 to keep it done.
Yeah.
So we got that $250,000 before we even put a shovel in the ground.
Right, yeah, and that's disheartening, you know. It feels like it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel like a good or worthy use of money. But but I mean, again, the professionals, are the ones who have their finger on the pulse of why these things cost what they do, and so they're not lying to us, like the engineers are not lying to us when they say they believe me, they're in the business of building stuff. They want to see that thing get built. Scott wants to see his project be, built in Beaver Creek Canyon. So he's not inflating the cost of things artificially by, wanting to have a helicopter come in. I do think that there are a lot of questions on this, specifically related to what happens with this, with the grant funding, with this specific budget allocation, with the permits. I think that it's, if with everybody's permission, I would like to gather more information on this and add it as an agenda item in our next meeting. Where I can come back and answer some of these specific questions about how grant funding for the bridge is tied to our budget allocation here, and what are our deadlines, and what are we getting, for that $250,000 if we, get the permits and the design.
And are people writing the grants?
Right. Yes.
Like Jeff, I agree with Zach. It's like, we got so many other priorities in the cities. I don't want to particularly focus on this all year, but at the same time, I don't want to just drop it.
This is Robbie. Not to be misconstrued, I'm not saying take it away completely. I'm just trying to reiterate that we're already 2 months into 2023.
Right.
Like we're already a sixth of the way through the year. So I'm saying, even if we were applying for the permits in 2025, that's when we're looking at the big picture in terms of that bridge, feasibly, it's definitely not gonna get built for at least 3 years, if not more. It just isn't. So even if we push the permitting process to next year, think about how much other opportunity that provides us to do really incredible things, I think, here.
Yeah.
I know that, we have to kind of label the uses, but even just to be able to provide you with more staff members to go and make the parks better, on a daily basis.
Our staff levels are actually, at the moment, our staff levels are looking pretty good. Where that'll change is with an increase of acreage. Once the Sandy River waterfront parks and trails come online, as it stands for the coming fiscal year, the only change to FTEs that is proposed is something that's already been approved last year, which is the addition of a full-time custodian on the facility side, so that we can get away from contracting out custodial services.
This is Robbie. Let me ask you this: is there any money set aside in the budget for, like, let's say that we came up with something that we wanted to do, like, for example, Zach's like wind-based artwork, implemented in the parks. If we decided that we wanted to do that, is there any budget allocation set aside for any special projects that we wanted to implement for the parks in the city?
Yeah, I mean,
Like on an ad hoc
not
basis?
large scale. We don't have like a large sort of slush fund for a project that we come up with and decide that we want to do on the fly. I mean, really, like large scale projects, large capital outlay projects, we're required to put specific allocations in the budget writing process. That being said, there are other funds for, that are like, there are improvement funds, there aren't, necessarily for replacing like for like, or, but like say, there's one specifically for the Sam Cox building. So there's a few smaller funds like that, but for the parks budget as a whole, we have an allocation for projects, but there are sub-line items for those things being specifically named.
So this is Robbie. I come from a perspective of being on the Fairview Community Engagement Committee, where the Community Engagement Committee realistically acted very similar to some of the duties, like Troutdale's First Friday event. I'm not entirely specific on like who the people putting that on, but that in Fairview is the Community Engagement Committee. On the Community Engagement Committee, we had, in your words, a slush fund. So we, at the beginning of every year, we knew that we had however much it was, just this isn't real, but $70,000 to $80,000 to do whatever we wanted with, to be able to organize the community's events in the ways that needed to be happen, but we knew that we had that amount of budget to work with to be able to put these things on. And so as we're sitting in the planning process, we can sit there and go, okay, can somebody go to the store and get, this, supply for the Easter egg hunt? And we could say, yeah, go ahead and subtract that from the budget. We have this remaining for the Harvest Festival in September, and so on and so forth. I was wondering if there's any opportunity to create that for the Parks Advisory Committee or for Parks Advisory based projects, because I think for me, just in terms of coming up with ideas, it's quite stifling to think about, well, I'd love to do this, but I'd have to, bring it up here, and then it's probably going to take 4 months to like even get through discussions, and then we have to talk about funding and so on and so forth. I think in terms of clarity process, it would provide us with a lot of clarity just to be able to go, if we want to do a wind art project, how much does that cost? Let's find the cost. Do we have that in our budget? Oh, we do.
The scale of something like that is doable.
Just as an example.
The scale of something like the Beaver Creek Bridge, I don't know. I guess I would say that like the budget is written so that there, we can do, things like in installing a sculpture, on a small scale, but for large capital outlay projects, like something like the bridge that we're discussing,
just as example, as another example, like that backyard habitat stuff that I'm talking about.
Right.
I would love to bring somebody in, but realistically, I know that even if we were to decide on plants to plant in the park, that's not going to be able to happen until likely next year, or unspecified amount of time.
So that isn't so something like a nursery order, plants to plant in the park. That's not a capital outlay expenditure. That's not a project necessarily. That could that would be something that falls more under something like grounds maintenance. So that could be something that's more written into like the materials and services section.
Yeah, just another budget.
This is Zach. I would be interested to hear the rest of your list of proposed projects for the year, and then we can maybe continue discussion on like about what you're supposed to do.
Sure thing, yeah, there's not too many more, and there's one other that is quite expensive. It's something that I've mentioned in the past, it's the issue of resurfacing Imagination Station. I had a meeting earlier this month with a representative from Ross Recreation, which is a local company that builds outdoor equipment and playgrounds and sports equipment all over the country. I was specifically interested in this product. He did give me a couple samples of it. It's basically really sturdy AstroTurf products that has been installed in a number of parks around Oregon. I put a few calls into some other municipalities and talked to some other park superintendents about how they feel about the product. I talked to the park superintendent in Bend. They installed this in one of their parks about 7 years ago. He says that it holds up extremely well. But it is expensive. And we have this issue of having to excavate a lot of the subsurface at Imagination Station. And so, the initial estimate for what it would cost to do that was a number that we were not comfortable going and asking the budget committee for. And so we have put an allocation in for the Imagination Station resurfacing of $300,000 in the coming year. That I would, much like the bridge, I would love to find a way to do this for that price tag. What we were looking at with the amount of excavation that has to happen out there of the subsurface was essentially double that, which is not, we can't with a straight face go to the budget committee and ask for that.
Yeah, lots of wood chips, right?
Yeah. So, but then the issue of the wood chips is like, we're spending all this money for ADA improvements up there. If we fill the play structure with wood chips, then what's the point of improving our pathways? So that is something that remains to be determined. I'm hopeful that we can get away with that number or less. I have to do some exploratory digging out there, kind of sample some areas of the play structure, see what's underneath, kind of in a gridded pattern, and get a better idea of exactly how much excavation and removal of material is necessary. In a best case scenario, if we could essentially just lay this grass product on top of what we have out there for a lot less money than that. So more to come on that. I have to figure out what's going on underground out there a little bit more. I also, in that meeting with Ross Recreation, I did ask them to give me a quote for installation of some sun sails for shade out there. And yeah, if you recall, somebody came in and mentioned just how sweltering hot it gets on the playground out there in the summertime. I did put in a $40,000 recommended allocation for installing sun sails out there. That would likely be, what he told me was it was about the installed price for a 30-foot by 30-foot by 30-foot sun sail that's on 18-foot steel posts was around $20,000. So that would get us two 30 by 30 by 30 triangles. So this is something that,
This is Sherry, and it comes down it goes up in the summer and comes back down.
Yes, they're removable.
Okay.
Yep, yep, so we would not be, they would get destroyed in the wind.
Exactly.
Yeah. So,
This is Shelley, I would be more worried about it getting destroyed by vandals. How vulnerable is it for that price tag?
That's a good question. I mean, yeah,
Spray
certainly spray
paint
painting.
can be overlooked.
Yeah. I would be more worried about the sail itself getting set on fire or something like that. They are 18 feet up in the air, so they're pretty high up there. I don't think, unless somebody came out with a ladder or something, I don't think they'd actually be able to get up there and destroy the sail itself. And spray paint can be painted over, I would say that they're not in any more danger of being destroyed by vandalism than anything that we currently have at Columbia Park, so.
This is Sherry, here's another question I have. Can you clarify, the budget says 24-25. Is that the start time of July, or is that from January and we're already 2 months in?
That's July 1st, yep,
Okay.
so the new fiscal year begins on July 1st, so yeah, we're currently in the 23-24 fiscal year.
Okay.
And let me see here. Another allocation in my proposed budget is Glen Auto pay to park kiosks for $15,000. So that is something that we have to do a little bit more fact finding on. But you know, in my discussions with Travis and others at Public Works, we feel like we can probably get this done for 15,000. There are a couple other, as I said, I don't have any, I have not requested any funding for additional FTEs on the park side of things. There's one request for an additional FTE that was already approved in the last fiscal year for that custodian. There are a couple other projects at the park's headquarters building that I proposed. One of which is building an actual brick and mortar restroom. I don't know if you all are aware of this, but parks workers don't actually have a restroom. We have a porta potty outside of our barn. Yeah, our office building that was built a number of years ago. This is long before I started working here, obviously, but when we had to move out of the old city hall, community development and permits took over the building that was built for parks, for the parks office. And so they're our neighbors right there, and we love them. But they did take our bathroom. So
they don't let you use it. This is Robbie. They don't let you use it.
They let us use it. They let us use it, but still, it's a little, you know, I mean.
I'd like the record. This is Robbie. I'd like the record to reflect that they sometimes don't let you.
No, that isn't true at all. We can use the bathroom. We all have keys. We can get in there. The only time that they won't let us use it is when it's occupied. So, but in any case, I did propose that we build an actual brick and mortar building at the park's headquarters. These folks work hard, and you know, I'd like to show them at least that small amount of respect to give them a bathroom to use.
Small price.
I put a recommended allocation in there of $120,000. I don't believe that it's going to cost that much, but
this is Jeff, how much a permit?
how much a permit? I'll have to ask Scott. I don't know. Not $250,000. The other recommended modification that I put in for the park's headquarters is to expand our parking area, because we do share our parking area with community development lately, because we've been sharing it with a whole host of Trail Keepers of Oregon volunteers, because we have a lot of equipment. Space is at a premium up there, and we're running out of places to park our rigs and park our tractor implements and snow plows and all that kind of stuff. So there is an area that is kind of like next to the dog park, kind of between the park's headquarters and the dog park, that I have in mind that I think, you know, we can grade and pave. I put an allocation of $80,000 in for that, in the hopes that we could potentially also get another, we have one like covered carport awning, but I'd like to eventually put one of those at the new parking area as well. Whether or not that's something we can do this year, that may be a project for another year, but at the very least, we need to expand our parking. So. And other than that, I've got an allocation on the park side for $10,000 for additional park security cameras. I'd like to expand our rhombus camera environment to specifically to Sunrise Park. That's an area where we've had repeated instances of vandalism. I've had a couple of requests from MCSO for any surveillance video that I might have related to criminal investigations up there. So yeah, and other than that, those are all the major capital outlay project allocations that I have on the park side. There's more on the facility side. I do have an allocation in the facility side to repave the CCB building, which is right here, which is the recreation headquarters. That's where Molly King's office is and where she hosts yoga classes and stuff. So there's an allocation to repave this parking lot, which as you walk out of the building, you can see really needs to be done. But yeah, those are all the large capital outlay project allocations that I have put into my recommended parks budget for 24-25 fiscal year. And so with that, I would, if anybody has any additional questions about any of those, I welcome those. If there's anything that, anybody feels that, should be in here that I have not mentioned, none of this is written in stone. The city's finance director has not yet gone before the budget committee with any of this, so.
This is Robbie. What was going to be the cost associated with repairing the basketball hoops?
With the basketball hoops, I'm not 100% sure. I'd imagine that we could probably do that for $10,000 or $15,000 or less, and that will be something that's going to be probably on the materials and services side of things. That'll be any material thing that is going, not a new thing that's going into the park. That's a project, right? If we're building a new thing, then that's a project. But if we're replacing like for like, then that can go in the materials and services side of things.
This is Zach. It's just funny to me hearing the 10 and 15,000 like just thrown around. Like I just feel like you go down to, just order it on Amazon. You get a hoop and screw it up there, and then we'll do it. It'd be like $100 maybe. Like,
keep in mind,
I'm kidding.
Keep in mind, like I'm also, as I've been going through all of this, I'm also estimating like my year-end expenditures for the current fiscal year, and we'll see what happens at the end. But I'm projecting about 85% of this current fiscal year's allocations used. And so the following year I personally would way rather come in under my estimate than over,
Yeah.
And so I design these with that in mind.
This is Zach. I appreciate that. I'm looking forward to seeing what we got. I think what's been on my mind lately, just in the interest of like our efforts and time, kind of echoing Robbie's sentiment earlier with, the slush fund talk, referencing back to the Parks Master Plan. On the Planning Commission, one of the things I made sure we added on Goal 7, funding and partnerships, when we're talking about, it was 7.6, the point there, making the Parks Advisory Committee kind of the overseeing body to the prioritization system for implementing a lot of the things that we talk about like this, right, for the year. The specific wording says, create a priority system for the Parks Advisory Committee to evaluate new and improved park facilities that considers available funding sources as recommended in the Parks Master Plan. So I would like to maybe put an agenda item on for this next meeting to kind of formalize this discussion in more of an official capacity. So we do have more of a weigh-in on, and more of, I guess, kind of some more traction on where we go with submitting this to budget in order to make sure that things are being done in the best interest of what, has come back from polls, citizens, like just the general Parks Master Plan feedback that we received. Obviously things change year to year too, so if there's a new focus based on anything like that, just being able to flex and kind of have those discussions would be a little bit more of an active part on making sure that we are, contributing to the project process, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for making that connection and bringing that, specific example and language that's in the master plan. I 100% support that.
Cool.
this is Sherry. I just want to ask a question for clarification, because I don't know how this all works, but so when you talk sun sales and you talk 40,000 and you talk to the person and they told you, you know, kind of, where's the, I guess, the size that you, I mean, how do we know that's the best size for what we're talking about at
Right.
around, because we're not putting it over imagination stations, so
No.
we're just putting it in some areas. I mean, our smaller ones, do they make more sense? Or like, when do we make that determination? Is that?
Right, so the reason that I asked him for the quote for that 30 by 30 by 30 triangle was, or I didn't, what I asked him for was, give me a quote for the most versatile, you know, pre-made, not custom size, that is the most popular thing that people install, that also, in you know, in the most parts, that also is, you know, that would lend itself the best to adding more in phases. And so he, you know, he said, this is the prefab size that, like, you know, you can put in a few of them one year and then do a few others that look exactly the same the next, you know, the next year. And they will always have them because they sell a lot of them. So that's kind of where I got that figure, where I, you know, now that being said, if we wanted to order something different and custom, we totally can. That would be more expensive. But we could get them in any shape and size that we want.
But so who you talk to, you're making the determination that they're the best person to use, or is it something that gets checked by?
They came highly recommended by some other municipalities that I talked to when I was, you know, when I was researching this particular product. They're a vendor and distributor of this, you know, this playground grass product. They are located here in Portland. I'm not saying that they're absolutely 100% the best, and certainly, you know, there are laws governing competitive procurement. Those laws just changed. I'm required to solicit 3 bids for anything over $25,000.
Okay.
But my meeting with them was sufficient to at least get a ballpark idea of
Okay.
what this costs for my budgeting purposes.
Okay. I just didn't know. I don't know how it all works, so thank you.
This is Michelle. I have a question. In the master plan, is there a plan down the road to improve like the pathways in the park?
Oh, yes. I'm so sorry. I forgot to mention that. There is actually an allocation in there, and yeah, that is both in the Parks Master Plan and in the ADA transition plan. And thank you for, I scrolled past this one and I guess I forgot to mention it, but there is in the capital outlay 185, we do have a $100,000 recommended allocation to replace and widen the trail at Sandy Palisades Park, which you've probably seen is completely buckled with tree roots.
Yes.
Somebody in a wheelchair could not navigate that path.
Which one is that?
Sandy Palisades is over in the Sandy Palisades neighborhood.
Evans and 26th.
Did you like point it on the map?
It's that green one kind of,
Yes.
keep going to your right.
We turn in, it's over here.
That's it, right
Oh,
over
okay,
there.
okay. Yeah, I don't go over there, that's why.
Yeah.
There's
Sandy
your-
Palisades.
If there was a bridge, you
Yeah.
might be able to get over
If
there.
you like baseball, you can go to Sandy Palisades. There's a baseball field there. There's and a playground, but no basketball courts. But yeah, the trail there is in dire need of replacement, and so yeah, there's an allocation or a recommended allocation of $100,000 to improve and widen the Sandy Palisades Trail.
Anything else on this topic before we go to closing comments? Before I go to closing comments, see if there's any public to be heard. Paul, do you have any comments or questions?
No, not right now, thanks.
Okay. All right, let's start. Shelley?
All right, for those of you that were present during the years of the pickleball debacle, if you haven't heard already, Vision Stages has left the building and they are installing a 12-court pickleball facility in that area. So we will have
Nice.
12 indoor pickleball courts.
Oh, wow.
Where is it gonna be? Oh.
Vision
down,
Stages, it's in
off
the,
Marine Drive?
Dairy Queen?
No.
The old
Dairy
Thriftway
Shop.
Market.
yeah,
Oh,
Yeah.
oh. So they're done using that as a film stage?
yeah, they left and it's my understanding they're turning that into a
I'd
pickleball
still rather play
facility.
outside, but that's good to hear.
Can't remember what that is.
That's it for
My
me.
wife wants a Trader Joe's there, but I said it's not gonna happen.
We all do.
Yeah, I would have liked just about anything else, but, you know.
You're happy to have that, that we're not in your backyard.
That's true. I was actually voting for a country dance place, but, you know.
That place is very close to where I live. I hope I don't hear it through the walls.
Yeah, that'd be tough.
Hey, we need our exercise.
Victoria,
Nothing. Thanks for all you did during
Yes.
that winter storm,
Absolutely, it's my
and
pleasure.
your crew.
I'll pass that along to them. Thank you.
And after.
That's true.
Sherry,
Mine is more of a question on some things. So when will, and this might not be a question to you, so I apologize. When will the streets actually be cleaned of the gravel that was put down during the storm?
They currently are working on it. Remind me again what part of town you live in?
I live south of the high school,
Okay,
and directly in front of my house, there was no gravel put on 22nd, at least on part of it, in front of my place. But it did come down, it's in other areas.
okay.
I'm more curious too, because there's so much debris that floats down the street and comes just butting up against my, like the drain area and stuff like that.
Right.
And then I'm wondering when they go through, are they gonna sweep that all up at the same time?
Oh, yeah, generally they do, and if you've seen it kind of migrate, like from cars driving over it, then, it might not really be on the streets crew's radar, because if they, they're working off of a map where gravel was applied during the storm, right?
Yeah.
For the last, month or so, they've been essentially kind of radiating out from the public works facility over here, and in larger and larger spirals out, and working on the areas where they know they put the most gravel down, so the major thoroughfares downtown. Downtown's done. We did a cleanup there. If there are any like areas that are trouble areas that seem like they're not getting hit, or if you've seen the sweeper go through your neighborhood and leave stuff behind, please do email me and let me know, and I'd be happy to pass that along to the streets.
I just haven't seen them yet. so.
Yeah.
this is Jeff. I was just thinking, because I had some neighbors complaining about the gravel, but I'm thinking we're in just past the middle of February. There's a good chance of another snowstorm.
It could happen.
So I was thinking, why would the city want to get all this gravel? Because I guess the gravel goes to waste, correct? You're not recycling, it's just got all kind of debris in it.
We do
Can
our
you
best to
recycle it?
recycle some of it. Yeah, they do. I mean, the sweeper does kind of filter it out. It
Okay, I
doesn't
didn't
get
know that.
everything, but yeah.
If you can
we
recycle it, that's good, but I was thinking all the money and time they put it down,
Mhm.
we're still, I've been living here for 6 years, and every February it snows. This might be the first February it doesn't,
Right.
but I'm thinking February is always a snow month.
Mhm.
Why not just leave the gravel
Just
there?
wait, we got March and April, so.
Yeah,
Hey,
so.
Don't jinx us.
But it's, the one thing, Jeff, I will say is, the gravel isn't doing its job when it's
Yeah,
not
it's on
in
the
road
side.
with the- Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just,
That's true.
And so it's so putting gravel out is always, I mean, I don't work on that side of things, and this was the first time that I was out working the snowplow crew this winter, so I don't have a ton of experience with this stuff, but the decision to put gravel out is always a tough call, and they always wait to do it until they're absolutely sure that they absolutely have to, that the balance of safety, to the damage that gravel causes, both to streets infrastructure and to cars and everything, so but then the flip side of that is when it all melts, it's a tripping hazard. and people walking down the street will slip on it like marbles and fall and hurt themselves and you know. And
I guess
so
it would also clog the storm drains.
it can plug, yeah, exactly, it can plug up all the storm drains. So just leaving it sit there, I think they don't want to do, because it can be a liability for people injuring themselves. It can, it breaks, it gets flipped up by car tires and breaks windshields and stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, that's a good point, and hopefully we can make it through next week without that happening.
Robbie,
Nothing.
Zach?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, we went to the Troutdale Play Park for the last couple weeks there with my little girl, and Molly's doing a great job with that. I would be interested in still continuing to loop in recreation quarterly or something, just to make sure that we're in communication and can just kind of touch base. I know she had mentioned just sending at least a little bit more of a passive reporting structure for visibility, just to kind of see how things are going, what's being activated, what people aren't really interested in, that sort of thing, just so we can kind of keep our finger on the pulse of community events and see how we can help and just continue to partner together.
That's great. It's been probably at least a quarter. Would y'all like me to invite Molly to our next meeting?
If she has the time and ability, I know she's busy too, but that would be great to have her back. And
it might be a good time for it. I mean, she can. I mean, her busy season is kicking off, in the spring. So I mean, she can let us know about rec programs that are coming up.
Yeah, thanks.
Michelle?
Nothing else, thank you.
Okay. Brenda?
No, I don't have anything.
Okay. All right, hold or cancel next month's meeting, March 20th.
Oh, I do have to say, I will be out of town. I will be taking a vacation.
Double it.
Yeah.
Double it.
I'll be on a plane on March 20th, so I'm not sure if I'll be able to make that. So I'm happy to do, if it's possible to postpone the meeting, then I'd be happy to join y'all the following Wednesday. If you want to hold it, I can certainly make arrangements for somebody to facilitate the meeting for you in my absence. Either Nick Ramstead from the planning office, who you met a few months ago, or somebody from my staff.
Is there anything that's really crucial that we need to get to next month, or?
Budget meets in April.
Oh, okay.
So if we were gonna review these again, we have to do
that's
it
true.
before.
I'm up for the following.
When does budget meet in April?
Yeah, I'm flexible.
I'm a no on the
15th and
following one, I believe.
17th.
That's the 27th?
Which is the 9th.
Is everybody good with March 27th? Wednesday?
I can make it work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll also be gone on the 20th.
Thank you all for being flexible in that regard. If it doesn't work, I can make sure somebody else is here.
Is the room open?
We just have to make sure we have.
Yeah. If it's not, then we'll go down to the Sam Cox building, where we were.
I like Sam
meeting.
Cox building.
So
Full time save.
So yeah, if all or most of you, or at least enough for a quorum, are okay with the 27th, is that good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we will have a meeting on the 27th.
Thank you.
Anything else? Otherwise, get a motion to adjourn.
This is Robbie, I move to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second Victoria.
Okay, all approved?
Aye.
All opposed? Meeting is adjourned at 8:52 p.m.
All right.
Do you mind me asking where you're going? On vacation?
Victoria, I need to.
Somewhere good, I hope.
Yeah, it'll be good.